What happens when a former director of talent acquisition trades hiring plans for hot takes and microwaves foil on LinkedIn?
I knew that would be funny. I did not know on LinkedIn that it was just like a thing that makes people lose their minds.
In this episode, I'm joined by the one and only Mike Peditto, a recruiting content creator whose mix of humor, honesty, and wild props has racked up hundreds of millions of views.
I'm going to make TikToks for a living and other things, but that's where I am right now.
Mike recently made the leap from full-time TA leader to full-time creator and speaker, and we're diving into what that transition has really looked like beyond the dopamine of viral posts.
You get that initial dopamine hit and you're like, shoot, now I have to figure out how to make money.
We get into what it takes to actually make the leap into full-time content creation, the strategy and chaos behind the now infamous foil in the microwave video, how Mike handles hate at scale, and why sometimes he leans into it.
When you let people think you're stupid is when they're most likely to interact with you.
Plus, I put Mike in the hot seat for a new Plead the Fifth segment, where he answered 2 spicy questions and named the creator he thinks is actively harming job seekers with their advice. You're not going to want to miss this one. Hey, Mike, I am so excited to have you back on the show.
Yeah, I'm excited. This is twice in what feels like a very short span. I feel honored. Am I the only one? Tell me I'm the only one.
Yes, actually, you're the only repeat guest so far.
Perfect. That's all I needed to hear. Now I'm going to give you a great guest. I'm going to make it worth it.
Amazing. So you've recently made this big shift to full-time creator, entrepreneur. So how did you know it was time to go all in on your content and leave your full-time TA role?
Good question. I don't know that you ever know it's time. I was planning to do it probably next year. I think that was sort of in a perfect world. You think about it ahead of time. You're like, I'll save this money and I'll do these things first. And this is how I'll do it. None of that happened. And it just became the time now.
Amazing. Yeah, it's just same for me. I always had like all these plans and everything. And then I was actually gracefully pushed into it, and it's like, okay, it's now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was pushed into it as well, and I don't want to go back to work, so I'm gonna make TikToks for a living and other things. But that's where I am right now.
Amazing. It's very fun on this side of things. So what's been like the most unexpected challenge in these early days of like doing this full time that no one warned you about?
That's a good question. You know what? The biggest challenge for me is I'm really bad at like making my own sort of pressure and schedules. I'm a procrastinator. I perform best under this. My last boss knew I was a procrastinator, and it used to just like irk him to no end, but I would just like have things ready when they needed to be ready. Don't talk to me. I'll show up to the meeting. It'll be done. And that doesn't work when you don't have any like real deadlines now. So that's been sort of these like couple weeks really trying to adjust to like, you think you're going to wake up and build a schedule and you're like at 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, I'm going to work out. And from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock, I'm going to film this. And just like what happens is I stare at my phone for just like 6 straight hours. I'm like, oh crap, I have to go pick up my kids. So that's the hardest part at the moment. And then like also, when you launch the way I did, right? I have a large following on social media, and I made this announcement on LinkedIn, and it came with this brand new website, and it was like a couple 100,000 impressions on LinkedIn, and people so excited and all this stuff. But then that stops after like 3 days, and you're like, shoot, now I have to figure out how to make money. And I think that's sort of just like this, like the dopamine goes away.
Oh my gosh, I can relate to this so much because I'm also a procrastinator, and I'm not saying that I've solved the issue, but it's definitely so much harder when it's on your own, it's like, you know that this deadline isn't real. Mm-hmm. I know what I've done is I literally announce things on LinkedIn. Like if you see my content right now, like I'm changing this podcast and everything. Mm-hmm. And I say like, coming soon, this is being announced. You'll see in a few days that I'll be like in 3 days or something like that. And that's my way of forcing myself to do it, because otherwise it will go on forever.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And it's like happening with like all of my projects, like the book I'm working on, all of this, I just like could be done, but I'm like choosing to not be. Like I act like having to just like send an email back to somebody is just like, okay, well, there's my whole Tuesday, I guess. And like, that's the issue I'm currently dealing with.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe, like, it's so relatable, to like hear someone else that goes through that. 'Cause that is, and then I'm married to someone who is the total opposite. Like he'll have this list and he'll be like, okay, I'll do an hour of this, an hour of this. And it's like, I see all this motivation and I'm like on my phone, like I have accomplished zero. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm researching on my phone for future content. Today, so side note, today I was just like, we have a chandelier in our house that has been burnt out for like 3 months. And today I finally was like, I'm going to do that today. It's not my job, but at least it's a thing that'll distract me. And I brought in our ladder and I got it up as high as I could. And I got to the top rung where I had to reach up. It's the only way to reach the chandelier. And now I have a broken chandelier. So also it's like a lesson to not do things, I suppose.
Oh, wow. All right. So anyway. Your recent video, I hope we get to see that on a video, and it'll make sense with my next question. So your recent videos with props like microwaving foil, oh my gosh, that got me triggered, have generated like massive engagement. Walk me through like your thought process when you're designing content that you know might trigger some strong emotions.
It's so funny. Like, I don't know what is going to trigger people like that. Like the foil thing, I knew that would be funny. I did not know on LinkedIn that it was just like a thing that makes people lose their minds. It's funny because you make content and something we always talk about is just like, you never know. You don't know what's going to be the one that pops off. You don't know what's going to be the one people respond to, because I try other things. I'm like, this is so good. And nobody cares. So, it's just sort of like, what will people notice is the thing, right? Just like, I think the lesson from something like that is like, this feels bad. This is a lesson from Courtney Johnson, who is a master going viral. And she gets me all the time because like she gets me so riled up and angry. So she does this to me, but she knows what she's doing. And I think it's just like when you let people think you're stupid is when they're most likely to interact with you. That people want to tell you what you're doing wrong. They don't want to tell you what you're doing is funny or good or anything else. They want to tell you you're wrong.
That is so interesting. And I've had that experience as well. Obviously not on the scale that you have, but if I ever am like, oh, my engagement is down or something like that, and I post just the most random question that I 100% know the answer to, but like people want to teach you. Oh my gosh. I get everyone in the comments like, no, this is how you do it, blah, blah, like, yes. So that is definitely a way to evoke emotions in people. So like when you create this type of content, like do you, and I know it's hard to know if anything's going to pop off or anything, but do you plan the follow-up pieces in advance, or do you like adapt based on the reaction? And I'm asking because of that genius follow-up video that you did with like the mean tweet style response, like reading everyone's mean comments just because you put foil in your microwave.
Yeah. No, I don't, because again, I'm only going to do a response like that if it like calls for it. So I make it, and sometimes I know, right? Sometimes I make a video that purposely leaves like this open-ended loop where someone's going to be like, well, what am I supposed to do here? And then I know I'll be able to make a reply video for it, of course. But when it comes to like these emotional reactions, it's just, that's an in the moment thing. And this is the second time I've had to do that. I had a video a long time ago. And, I know this is something you wanted to kind of talk about with me too, was like the, like reactions people give. I had a video a long time ago go viral. It was a podcast clip, And in the clip, I was reading quotes from Fox News hosts to our guest, who was Gabrielle Judge, Lazy Girl Jobs, and I was reading things Fox News had said about her to her. But in the clip, it looks like I am just like berating her and saying these things. And that did like 2 million views on TikTok, and like Gen Z came for me harder than like I've ever been come for on the internet. And that was the first time I made a video like that, where I was just like reading, like people were just like, oh, bro's calling work a hassle. Looks like going to the gym is a hassle for him, and like things like that. And I was just like, okay, we're just going to lean into this, I guess, because it happened.
Man, people are so unhinged, and it's like, it's funny. And then I think I was one of your first-ish comments on that foil thing. Mm-hmm. And obviously I wasn't coming from like hate or anything. I was like, great video. The real crime here is the foil. And like people, I had to turn off my comments on that, on my alerts on that the other day, because now I find myself defending, because people are like, yeah, this is bad. I'm like, why do you feel so strongly about something that's clearly he's not burning his house down, because there's a camera inside the microwave as well. Like clearly this was genius way of getting engagement, but it's like people need to touch grass, really. It's you had the viral comment. There's always the one comment on a video like that just like gets almost pinned to the top from likes, and you were the first one. You had a comment, and now everyone's responding to it. But that's the funniest thing to me. I was just like, you realize this is being filmed from inside the microwave, right? Like, do you think I also microwaved my phone, or do you think maybe I just opened up the door and didn't turn it on? But again, people want to assume that everyone's dumb and talk to them like they're dumb. I think people don't like, if you're not creating content, you probably don't understand that to get that view that you got from looking at you from inside the microwave, your camera has to be in there. There's literally no other way of doing it. And I think people aren't thinking about that because they don't create videos, right? So they don't know. So what have you learned, like, about the balance between grabbing attention and actually delivering something useful in your videos?
Yeah, that's hard. It's something I've always struggled with, because when I first came out, like making videos and got on this scene, my big thing was like, look, I don't make like dumb stuff. I'm not trying to go viral. I'm going viral because what I'm saying is good and people are connecting with it. But that's become harder and harder to maintain. It's just like, it feels like more and more you have to be figuring out a way. So for me, it always starts with like, what's the message I want to get across? Because that message has to be here. And now what can I do to make people pay attention, even if it's unrelated? And I think that's the big thing for me. I'm never going to try to catch your attention or go viral with some like BS about hiring. I'm never going to claim some false stat or something that's going to get you mad. I'm going to get your attention by doing something else. Right? I just posted on Monday on TikTok, and it's like 1.3 million views now, a video where I was like on my kid's chalkboard, and I was like moving away pieces of paper that were like, had like messages behind them. And I've stolen that from other content creators. It's something I've seen done before as well. But it made people stop. They want to see what's behind there. And I didn't have to change the message. Like I was just like, I'm giving resume advice, but I'm doing it in this way. So I think that's become the big thing for me, is just experimenting. Like, what can I do unrelated to my advice that would just make people stay?
Such a genius way of doing it. And like you said, there's a lot of content creators that do it. I think it started with like the girls doing their makeup and stuff like that. But like the way that you do it to me is like so genius, because people still, you can tell from your comments that people are still listening to the message that you had, because there's a mix. People are enraged about the hammer or the foil or whatever, but there's still people commenting on, this is great advice, because at the end of the day, it really is. So you can totally tell that you've like found your way of striking that balance. So
yeah, and I appreciate it. Yeah, that is the big goal for me. And I think back, like I think this has been going on for about a year, right? So I've been making content for 2 years, and I think a year ago, because it just came up in my memories, is the first time I did a magic trick on TikTok. And it was just like a real dumb one, and it had like a Beyonce song in the background. It was like a joke about managers disappearing after an interview, and it was like I made a card disappear. But I think that was sort of the start. Like people really like liked it. And I started getting comments. I was like, oh, I had to watch the video twice, once to see the magic trick and like once to listen. I was like, perfect. That's what I want to happen.
Exactly. So you're attracting a massive audience, right? Job seekers, recruiters, even people in the comments that are just there for the drama because those people are there. Who are you really making your content for right now?
That's a good question, and I think I'm trying to figure that out myself. It used to be only job seekers. That was where most of my content went. Now that I've branched out on my own and I'm trying to do more, right? So we talked about like full-time on my own. You know, full-time content creation isn't really the goal. It'd be amazing if I can just like make enough money making TikTok videos so like nothing else has to happen. But the goal is for them to get me seen enough to be making money doing other things. So you know, I've started to try to shift a little bit as well to, you know, the kind of audiences that I want to be doing business with. Not that I have anything against job seekers, but I'm not a career coach. I don't want to be charging $10,000 for networking courses. So, you know, for me, it is trying to figure out how do I keep attracting recruiters and hiring managers and people who still can benefit from what I'm talking about. So there has been a bit of a shift in a lot of my topics to really focus on like what we can be doing better, what it's actually like, without preaching about it. You know, I don't think if I made a video that said like, here's how to hire better, anyone would care. But by poking fun at bad hiring or by poking fun at a lack of training or something like that, I think that catches the right attention and still appeals to job seekers without asking them to be the ones who have to fix something. So that's sort of like the new goal, is trying to figure out how to do that for me.
That is so interesting. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because a lot of people in our space, from what I've seen, is when they want to go full time on this, they immediately think that they have to be a career coach. And I mean, I get it. I started that way, but it's like, I don't want to do this. It's nothing wrong with people who charge money for these things. It's needed. It's a needed service. Not talking about the scammers, talking about the legit people that do it. But everyone that leaves TA or HR doesn't have to become a career coach. There's so many other things that we can do. So I'm excited to like follow along and see how you end up monetizing this. But yeah, you're on the right track. It's like that balance of attracting both like the recruiters, the hiring managers, the people that can hire you for these things, and the job seekers too, because you're still just giving them advice as you were before.
Yeah. And I mean, I still have like, you know, job seeking book coming. And I still think that like on TikTok, that's still a mostly job seeker audience. But I do think there's a difference in the audience across LinkedIn and then even onto Instagram. So for me, where it used to be make one video, get it out everywhere. Now I think it becomes a little bit more targeting who I want to try on each platform.
Amazing. That is so interesting. So let's talk a little about that strategy, because so many people just post the same thing everywhere. And I love your approach. Like TikTok, okay, here are your job seekers. LinkedIn, is it more mixed for you there?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is the spot, of course, where I'm trying to appeal to the most companies. And, you know, it is a hard mix. And I do usually wind up posting stuff everywhere because, you know, I'll still see what happens. Like that foil video I made for LinkedIn, specifically because LinkedIn had this like video trending going on. There was some, it was like I saw videos popping up on LinkedIn that were saying like, why my coworkers hate me or my coworkers are going to roast me for this. That's what it was. That's why I made the fish video. And I was just sort of like jumping into that. And then I was like, all right, yeah, I'll try it on TikTok and Instagram too. And it didn't do as well there because I just don't think that's who the audience was. But yeah, so it is sort of some of that aiming. And I think with LinkedIn, for me, the struggle has been, how do I keep making content that appeals to people who don't follow me and I want to get that in, and all these job seekers who do follow, knowing it has to be something different. So I think I am going to start kind of having like TikTok specific content and LinkedIn specific content. And if it does well, it can go cross platform. We can try it all these other ways. But I do want to talk to the people on LinkedIn who can be doing something without turning into, like I said, sort of the like preaching of like, here's how to do better. Because you don't need any more of that.
Yeah. What about Instagram and Threads? You're on there as well.
I don't understand Threads. I like post to Threads like once a week, and maybe that's my problem. I can't get any traction there. I'm not fast enough with it. I've become too used to video. Every time I like post a thread that I think is like important, it gets like one like on it. So I don't know if anyone out there knows how to do well on Threads, because I see people making money on Threads, and I love to, but I don't know how.
I don't either. I tried Threads because it's like, okay, this is like Twitter. I was doing good on Twitter. So I literally had my VA take every tweet that ever did good that was relevant to my new audience. Because again, when I was on Twitter more when I was talking to job seekers, and we put it on Threads and like multiple times a day and everything. And like some did well, most didn't. But let me watch a show. Real Housewives. I'm watching the reunion right after this. Let me post something about that. Thousands. It's like none of these people. So like Threads, I don't know what's happening there either. I think I'm excited to see where it goes. But yeah, there's people there making money and they're just killing it. And I love that for them. I haven't figured it out yet either.
And Threads feels very overwhelming to me because like Threads, you can't control what's on your feed. So you just sort of, if you post on a topic or an actual topic, you'll see a million of them. So every time I open up Threads, I just see these like resume writers and career coaches all posting the same threads about ATS, AI, keywords, and all this stuff. And I just like hate it. And I just sort of like close down. I shut down because I want to argue with them. My instinct's going to be to argue, and that's not who I want to be anymore. So I feel like I just avoid it.
Yeah. So, going back to the hate that you get, what was the worst piece of hate that you've ever received that like genuinely stung? And like, how did you process that?
The worst piece of hate that generally stung. I get a lot. It was definitely probably goes back to that video I talked about, right, with Gabrielle, because that was the first time that like I felt generally misunderstood. A lot of hate I get, I bring on myself, right? The foil in the microwave, microwaving fish, showing my bare feet in the video. I asked for that. Or even just making job search content, right? I ask for angry job seekers to show up, and I know that's part of it. I know they're frustrated. This video was like, I appeared to be the kind of person I'm not, and that I don't like, and people thought that was me. And that was really hard because my first instinct was to like defend myself. Right? I was replying to every comment just like, isn't it obvious this is satire? Or I was reading Fox News quotes or all these things. And like that becomes a losing battle. Like no one cares. Then I tried making some jokes about like, oh, it's, bad editing. I did that to myself because it was bad editing. Then I edited the video and I was just like, I'm learning all this stuff and like nobody cared. And like people just started coming about like how, because the quotes were so digging at her. Like the topic of this was like, if anyone who doesn't like know her, like listen, right? It's like the idea of her like anti-work lazy girl jobs is that you shouldn't have to be forced to just like work some corporate job 40 hours a week. And there's other ways to do it. And so the quotes I was reading were about how like Gen Z doesn't want to have kids or go to work because it's too much of a hassle. Why don't they want to have these hassles in their life? And so people could sort of came at me just like, oh, this guy's poor wife. And like, they knew my name, right? And they were like saying my wife's name or like the fact that I have kids. And like, that was hard because it was so wrong. You want to call me an HR bootlicker, fine, whatever. But like that stuff was just so personal.
Yeah.
And like thinking I was just like, they were like, oh, this old boomer right wing, blah, blah, blah. And like, so I made the one video. Eventually, for a while, it shut me down. For a while, I almost like deleted the TikTok, or I like couldn't even look at it. Like it was the only time in making content that I just felt like I don't know if I want this anymore. But I knew it would pass because it always passes.
Yeah.
So I took the podcast TikTok off my page, off my like phone. I was just like, I'm not going to look at this for a while. And occasionally people would show up on like my videos because they just like saw me from that or whatever. And then I was like, okay, maybe I'll lean it a little bit. I made one of those like mean tweet style videos where I just like took some of the ones that were true and like made jokes about them, where I was just like, people are like, the one that said like, this guy looks like going to the gym is a hassle. And I was just like, yeah, it is. That's why I don't go. That's why people hate the gym. You're right. And like things like that. That stung for a while. It was just hard to watch people like personally attack you.
Yeah. That it is hard. But it's also like, I kind of understand people, and it's good that you were able to reflect and understand. It's like people don't understand the context. And this is what I tell people sometimes or all the time, like in your video, you have to be, and even in your written content, you have to understand that for some people, this is the first time they've ever seen you. They've ever interacted with you. So be sure that what you're putting out there is something that you're okay with them getting without any context about you, because anyone who's seen any of your videos knows that that's not you. You're not this mean person. You're not this boomer sitting there talking about like, no, but if that's the first time that they see you, I get it. Now, do I get their hate and their personal attacks? Absolutely not. I don't agree with that ever. But people like I think that's an important thing for anyone getting into creating content or anything to understand is people don't always have context. And even if you give them the context, they don't care. Those few seconds is the idea that they made of you for whatever reason. And it's hard for them to change their mind in some instances. Some of them don't want to change their mind.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so many people you like show them exactly what like you show them like, well, I don't care. And yeah, that was hard. And I thought it was obvious, right? I had a caption on. Like, I assume people read captions. I assume they pay attention and they don't. And that was a lesson for me in general with making content is like for a long time, it took me a while to accept that I view and think of my content like a TV show, right? It's just like you started episode 1, video 1. And you've watched it all the way up. But you're right, especially now with the way these algorithms are, most people who see my videos have never seen me before. And I need to kind of keep that in mind in every video. And that does make it hard because people will make a lot of assumptions off the one video they see. Yeah. Right? I make a video where I'm just like, hey, you need to change this about your resume. And people are just like, oh, you're just another HR blowhard who doesn't know how it's like to job search. I'm like, oh, you don't even know my story. You don't know that I lost multiple jobs and blew up on TikTok by publicly job searching and that like I'm trying to make the process better. You just know this video. And like that's hard. You wish people could just like know all that, but they never will.
They never will. I learned that lesson on TikTok. 2021 TikTok was rough. And I decided to share a video with salary negotiation advice. So talking about money on TikTok. And I used an example of not wanting $90,000 and wanting 100 or something, or not wanting 85,000 and like trying to get 90. And then I wore wigs and cause it was different characters, sure. Right? So one wig had an afro. The other was me with this hair. Then the video before my husband was on it, who's white. All of a sudden now I'm a person who hates black people and I'm mocking black people with an afro. I'm like, what? Like, where did, like, it's just, TikTok is an interesting place. But again, people don't have context. People don't understand. And you get all this hate off of it was a 30-second video. That's when I literally stopped TikTok for probably a year after that.
Yeah, it's chased a lot of people away. It's chased so many people away doing that stuff. And like, it is wild to me. And like, people are so ready to just like be angry over things. And if you can lean into that and have some fun with it, great. But it's when it gets personal that it's like really hard, right? And that's, again, in terms of like the fish video, like I was not ready for how angry people would be, but like I knew what I was doing. But like, that's totally different. But yeah, it's people will come for you and they're just ready to be mad. That's what they want to do. They want their instant reaction to be anger. And they'll make whatever assumption, they'll say whatever, and they've sort of felt safe. And it is getting absurd. We had a podcast episode where like right after that video happened, I just like started the show. And I just kept going like, are y'all okay? Like, what is going on? Like, are you all okay? Why are you like this?
I love that you refer to it as the fish video because true, it was what you were talking about. But I think I do and everyone else calls it the foil video because that's what got everyone.
There's a lot of people in there mad about the fish. So just like calling me how selfish. That's like a lot. So there's two types of comments. There's the people just like calling me dumb because of the foil. And then the people who hate me because I'm like a selfish, shitty coworker because of the fish and the feet. I really thought the bare feet was going to be the thing that got people riled up. Like I snuck in 1 second of my bare feet, and I really thought that's what was going to get them. But yeah, it's this morning somebody told me, he wrote a comment that said, last time somebody microwaved fish at the office, they had to make an emergency trip to the proctologist. I of course understood this comment, but I wanted to see like I was just like, what do you mean? And he was just like, oh, I think you can infer, if you're clever at all. I was like, I'm not clever. What happened? Tell me.
Say with your chest.
Yeah. Are you saying you sodomized that person? Is that what you're trying to say?
Oh my gosh.
This is LinkedIn. Your name is attached.
Don't even get me started on that. It's like, seriously? And like, oh my gosh. Because we know as recruiters, you click on the person's thing and they don't create content most of the time. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that you see show up there in activity is this very mean comment that has no business out there. And look, at the end of the day, I don't judge people off of these things. I judge them off of skills. But do I really want to call the person admitting maybe or maybe not to sodomizing people over fish in the microwave? Do I want to work with them? Absolutely not. Yeah. I don't.
Yeah. And people see that stuff. Like people get so worked up about like, should I use the open to work ban or whatever else? It's like, what's hurting you is the way you act on LinkedIn. I said that in a video there. It was just like your rants on LinkedIn are hurting your job search more than you realize. Well, I should be allowed to. You are allowed to. And they're allowed to not like them. Like,
yeah, it's free speech, but I'm also allowed to not want to work with you. So yeah, 100%. Yes. It's like, oh yeah, when I get mean comments, I usually tell people it's like, I think this was meant for the group chat.
Yeah.
And it like usually stops them. It's like,
yeah,
I don't think you really wanted this out there, but oh well. So you spent over a decade just like in TA and leading, and your expertise, I'm sure, really grounds your content and like on the day-to-day things that happen. How do you plan to stay sharp on recruiting trends now that you're no longer on the inside?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And that's really important to me. It's a reason that I'm not like trying to become like a full-time career coach and things too, because I've talked so much junk about the people who like got out of recruiting 10 years ago and just like still talk about it. Part of my goal, like what I want to be doing is still working with companies. I am still planning to take like advisory positions and consulting roles and work on one-off roles to help companies and people I know fill them. And, if somebody needs a temporary recruiter for 2 months who can like do it part-time, like whatever, I'll take those roles as well. And I still plan on doing these trainings and talks with these companies. So that's the goal. I never want to get fully out of it for exactly those reasons, right? I want to help companies when they're looking to make ATS changes or whatever else and kind of work through those things. So that's the hope. Talk to me in 5 years and see what it goes. But that is my goal, because I do think it's important to stay as someone practicing in this world if you're going to keep talking about this world.
And this is for anyone listening that's thinking about this. This is very important, especially to brands and to other people. I get it a lot, like, oh, well, but you're no longer a practitioner. It's like, First of all, the last time I had a full-time role was 2023. Like, it's not that long ago. Second, these are the things that I do that still have me be a practitioner. I just don't do it full time. But that is very important for brands, and they're seeing it because your credibility. Again, we've had so many people who've 20 years ago recruited and are still out here giving job seekers advice. And it's like, you don't even know how this works anymore, to be honest.
My resume advice has changed so much over the last 2 years, let alone 10. Right when I first came out, and I like made a resume template and like a resume making guide and stuff like everyone does, is like free downloads. And like 6 months later, I deleted them. I was like, I don't believe in any of this anymore. Like, this isn't the thing. And like, I change the advice I give people every few months based on like what the market looks like. So I need to stay on top of that stuff. And I think everyone does. So when I see people giving resume advice based like the same advice they gave a decade ago, I'm like, the advice I gave a decade ago, like, involved these huge, like, resume bloat was everything back then. And now it's all about like efficiency and quick time to value. And if you haven't updated your advice, then you don't know what you're talking about anymore.
And I want to make sure people understand, I'm not saying, and I don't think you're saying either, it's like, oh, never, like, always have to keep recruiting or things like that. It's just like, stay adjacent to the industry, right? Stay like, have friends that are in the industry, talk to them, go to webinars that other people. So yeah, it's easy. It's like, okay, you're no longer needing to buy software or anything. So you're not going to go to these webinars that the brands are doing. I actually go to them because I want to hear what people are saying, the questions that they're asking, and just that's how you stay current in the industry. It doesn't mean you have to recruit and you have to work. I haven't worked direct in a year or since 2023. However, all of my business that I have, I work with employer branding teams and with talent acquisition teams at creating videos for talent attraction and that type of purpose. So I know the problems that they're having and we brainstorm together on how to solve them through content. So stay adjacent to the industry. Never be this person that's so far away in your world that you don't know what's really happening, because it changes daily.
Yeah. And yeah, it is exactly that. Yeah. Watch these demos, do this stuff. And yeah, like, recruiting is almost the least important part. It's understanding the tools. It's understanding what candidates are doing. It's understanding what recruiters and hiring teams are going through. And you have to know that stuff. But yeah, it's tough because you see a lot of people just get out of it. And it's like anything else. I mean, if you used to be a basketball player and you want to get back and you want to become a basketball coach, but you just like didn't watch or play any basketball for 10 years. Now you want to get back. Like, the rules changed, the game changed.
Yep.
You have to be up to date on those things.
If someone's listening is like side hustling right now and dreaming of going full time, what do you wish that they know before making that leap?
I don't know. What should I know? I'm sort of new to it. I mean, so I guess the answer is just like, it's okay to still be figuring it out, I hope, because I don't know yet. I don't have everything figured out for myself. And I had a plan and a thought, and within like a few weeks, even, I'm just sort of like, okay, this isn't going how I thought it was going to go. What do I need to do? So I think it's just sort of like, you need to understand it's going to take a while, that like you get that initial dopamine hit we talked about, but then just kind of like, I'm making less money now than I would have been, and I'm probably going to be for quite a while. And I was talking about this with like my therapist when, like, before going in, she was like, "Oh, you sound excited about this." And it's just sort of like, she's like, "Well, what are you going to do if things don't feel like they're working?" And you have to like be ready for that, right? You have to know, like, I've made this decision for the long term. This isn't if it's not working in a month, I give up. Which means you also have to be in the life position to be able to do that. Yeah. So I think that's the big thing to know, is just sort of like, go in with a long-term plan and be ready to not panic about it.
Yes. Amazing advice. And as someone who, I think now I'm over that hump of like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm making less money. Now, when you get to the other side, it's so rewarding, but it's rough. So having a therapist or having friends or in a support system, having a plan and just understanding it is a business. So like any other business out there, you have to have a plan. You have to think about it as a business perspective. You can't be getting caught up in the dopamine of going viral, because that doesn't necessarily translate into money. You always have to be thinking about, it's like, okay, this is my business. This is how I feed my family or feed myself. What's the strategy behind it? And you also have to be okay with it changing, because it's going to change. What I thought I was going to do when I first started versus what I'm doing now, never in a million years. But like, if you're out there, if you're just testing out things, you'll just like, it will come to you. And also this space, especially in the HR and TA space, other creators, and I'm not saying it because of me, but we're all very supportive of each other. Of course, there's people out there that you just stay away from and stuff like that. But don't be afraid to ask people questions. It's like, I do it all the time. It's like, hey, I saw you got a deal with this company. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to get a deal with them or with one of their competitors. Can you tell me how did you pitch them or what are they looking for? Like that type of thing. And you'll be surprised. People will answer. They'll be like, oh, let's get on a call right now. People tell me like, I charge this, I spoke to this person, this is what I did, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, wow, that's very different from other creator spaces because I have friends that are creators in other niches. It's very different. So in our niche, that's something to really think about and rely on and just like leverage it. So for anyone thinking out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I have people who I text constantly just sort of like, hey, what did they pay you for this? Like, who'd you talk to? Or like someone told me they were trying to get with like this company. And I was like, oh, they actually reached out to me a while back. Like, here's the person. And like, I think sharing all this is very helpful because that's not a competition, right? These brands aren't like, I'm only going to work with one person, fight it out. And right, when you're like looking at business and companies to work with, right, you and I might both be trying to kind of get companies to pay us to talk about branding or do this better or whatever else. But like they're going to come to the person they know and have seen and kind of gone through. It's not like they're putting out open recs and are like everybody fighting the comments for who's going to do it and why you're better than the next person. Right, there's room out there for everyone. And yeah, that is me. I'm in that experimental phase where I'm like, oh, maybe I'll try this or this and make this money and do this money. And that's really hard, especially when you're someone who's not super disciplined like I am. So I think that it's being okay with all that stuff and then seeing what works, right? I've booked some business and I'm like, that's one route that I have. But I also want to try this thing and this thing and this thing. And, there's some freedom and fun to that. But it's not a game. It is still trying to make a living.
Exactly. All right. So it's time for everyone's favorite segment. And I love how I say everyone, being that I haven't released this version of the show yet. It's my favorite segment. It's called Plead the Fifth. And I'm going to ask you 3 questions. You can answer honestly, or you can plead the fifth. But here's the thing. Okay. You can only plead the fifth once.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And I'm going to ask.
I only know one question.
Yes. I'm going to ask the questions one by one. You don't get to hear them in advance. So choose wisely.
Okay. I'll probably just answer all of them. Let's go.
All right. So first question. Do you secretly think a lot of recruiting content out there is just bad?
Yes. But not secretly. I openly think a lot of recruiting content out there is just bad. Amazing. Do you want me to name names? I'm not going to.
Are you? So have you ever shared job search advice that you knew wasn't universally true, but would go viral anyway?
Oh, that's a good question. So yes, but I don't think in the way that question is implying, because I don't think there's any universally true job search advice. I have never shared advice that I would just consider bad advice that I thought would go viral, but I've absolutely shared advice knowing it will be controversial. And that tends to go viral, but I believe in the advice still.
Okay. So last question. Mm-hmm. Name a popular LinkedIn content creator in the career space whose advice you think is actively harmful to job seekers.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Give me a second here. Actively harmful, consistently. I'm trying to think through because I think of posts. I can think of individual posts, but I don't know of like a name of somebody who's constantly doing this because I probably blocked a lot of them. Okay. I've called plenty of this out before. I think that I think while having gotten better, it's more getting better from one side. And I do think that Jerry Lee of One Salting tends to fall into that second type of question you asked and is much more concerned with what will go viral and get people to agree than if it actively helps. Some examples even are, right? Like you'll see him pop up and say, oh, if you see Workday, run away from the application. Like, yeah, I get it. Workday sucks. We all hate Workday. But not applying to a job is 1,000 times worse than applying to the job. And I think anyone who's out there kind of fanning the flames of how angry job seekers are already without really providing help other than like something for sale isn't beneficial. And that's always what I've tried to avoid in the content. And I know it could go viral doing that a lot, is just sort of like leaning into what makes people angry. And I do think he tends to do that. And I think I've said that openly enough times.
Amazing. I am so excited that you answered that question. Thank you so much for playing Plead the Fifth.
Yeah, that's good. I want to see what you do to other people with that and find out who's, don't tell them that last question and see if they use it first. I mean, I think most people wouldn't do that. And I will say, right, even having said that, so Jonathan from Wansulting, who's the other half of Wansulting, I consider a friend. We text. When I launched my own, he actually texted me and like congratulated me. I was like, let's catch up. I've texted him for advice on sort of making content. Him and I have had dinner last year when we were at like a same event together. And he told me a lot about how as a company, they used to try to go viral with bad advice all the time. And like, he doesn't want to do that anymore. Like, he just wants to help people. So I do think there has been a shift. So I do want to kind of like call that out. But like I said, that's why it's more about one of them than the other. But in general, I used to be this person who feuded with any content creator I disagreed with. And I don't want to do that anymore. I don't think you should be hurting people with the advice you're giving and should get called out for that. Greg Langstaff, who I should have said, but too late. But I don't know if he's that active on LinkedIn. Ultimately, as long as you're not just like selling some BS at people, whatever, go do your thing.
Amazing. Amazing. So this has been an amazing conversation. I'm so excited to release it and for everyone to listen to it. How can listeners connect with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. It's Mike Peditto, /M Peditto is my LinkedIn name. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube at Realistic Recruiting. You can also find me, MikePeditto.com is the new website I mentioned. It's a very pretty website. Yes, you can sign up there to get info about like the book release when it is coming as well. Don't fill out the form on the site if you want job search help. Just email me. There's a form on the site for companies who would love to work with me or learn some more. Most of the form fillings out have been people who are just like wanting some free job search advice. Just email me. But those are all the ways to find me. Amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show. Yeah, I'm honored to be the first guest on the rebrand and the first double guest. Amazing. Thanks to Mike for being on the show and for being such a generous guest. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to check out his content across LinkedIn, TikTok, and on his website, MikePeditto.com. And if you're curious about other ways content can impact hiring, next week I'm talking to a TA leader who stays behind the scenes but gets her hiring managers on camera. Her strategy has helped her attract more qualified candidates without being the face of the brand herself. It's a different approach, but one that's working. So make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you in the next episode. Workfluencer is produced by Perceptible Studios. Learn more about how we can help you use video to attract, engage, and retain qualified talent at perceptiblestudios.com. If you're enjoying the Workfluencer pod, share it with someone who's changing how we talk about work, or who should be. And hey, if this episode gave you ideas or inspiration, leave us a 5-star review. Reviews help other listeners find us, and honestly, it makes my day. Thanks for listening, and I'll chat with you next week.